Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Snake in the Grass event, in which the Vinepyre is added to the game. So we got several things going on. We have the new calendar coming out for the entirety of December, as well as for January as well, but we'll mostly just be going over December one for now, as it's the more applicable one. We have, of course, the campaign start of the new campaign, bringing in a bleed gem, a purple gem that will end up bleeding a random enemy when taken. This combined with a lot of extra bleed gems can end up ultimately resulting in doing 10 true damage to all enemies per turn that goes by, which of course is very, very, very effective. We got ourselves the Green Doom, and of course the Winter Imp is back in drop table, which is actually the only relevant imp, and it'll be in the drop table for all of December and January. Still a bit of an underutilized troop just because of, things like Tesla, Takshaka, and other true damagers these days, but there was one point where he wasn't useless, but of the 6 imps, he is the more relevant one, if nothing else. But anyways, let's start one thing at a time, and let's go with the new campaign. So if we go over to the campaign tab over here, we can end up seeing everything related to the new campaign. The two most noteworthy things, of course, being the weapon and the troop itself, with the weapon actually being somewhat decent this time around. It has the potential to 10 true damage bleed the entire enemy team, aka 4 stack, as well as generating mana. So it converts all gems of a chosen color into bleed gems, and then burns and inflicts bleed on all enemies of that color. And of course the bleed gems themselves, when taken, that you'll end up getting a ton of, will also end up ultimately bleeding out the enemy team as well. So not only are you getting a bunch of purple mana accumulation from that, but you'll also be effectively full bleeding the enemy team, and they will also effectively be taking 13 damage per turn, 10 true damage from the bleed, and then 3 from the burn. So overall, not that bad at all. Plus it has burn synergy if you're using like triple damage burning hero class, covers some colors that were already covered, a little bit high at a 15 mana cost as far as a converter, but of course all the extra benefit that's doing kind of makes up for the fact that it has all that cost associated with it. But yeah, it has a lot of potential. And also in Soulforge that we'll see in a little bit, there's also one of the old versions of this, the Decay Gem one, that's available in Soulforge this week. So if you didn't end up getting that from one of the past events, you'll be able to this time around as well, though this one will be money locked for the next like upcoming couple months, pretty much until Golvania event happens like after the thing. So it could be like half a year to a year, unfortunately, similar to the Decay one that I think just finally came back as of this week, compared to when the event was like 2 campaigns ago or whenever it was. Anyways, beyond that, of course, we also got the Mythic, which is now what, the 3rd Mythic to have gotten this new shininess mechanic. I assume she just ends up getting a bigger boost ratio, though it could be a 4th hit, which would be nice. But it's probably just a higher boost ratio as far as what she does, but she steals a bunch of life from 3 random enemies, boosted by bleed gems. Biggest downside of her is no follow-up whatsoever, so this, of course, will end up making it so probably not going to be used too much over things like, Tesla, that uses the exact same coloration. Does fit pretty well in the Kingdom in the sense that there's a lot of other mythics that do a bunch of true life steal like this. You have Crimson Bat, you have Dracula, stuff like that, even the 50% mana start for all undeads, which it would end up being utilized with, also has that true damage life steal kind of thing. But overall, just doesn't do enough with no follow-up at all to really be worthwhile, unless you get like a ton of bleed gems on the board. Maybe there'll be some mechanics to end up doing with this over the course of the season, so maybe we'll have enough synergy to end up making it work. But we'll just have to see, because she does not produce enough bleed gems to be able to be the only bleed gemmer on your team to really be able to utilize her boost ratio, because the only creation she has is create a bleed gem when her turn begins. This is just pure value, and that's creating 1 purple gem at the start of every single turn. However, even with like 2 or 3 of these on your team, it's not enough bleed gems to really be doing it on its own. But if we get enough additional mechanics over the course of the season, we'll be able to create hopefully enough synergy with her to actually be able to utilize her ability to a decent degree. Otherwise, she's just going to be a pretty mid-average true damager without really much of a use case to use it outside of like maybe a pure Golvania or Undead or similar related restriction compared to, Tesla, Takshaka, and other meta true damage options in the current state of the game. Beyond that, of course, we do have as well the entirety of the December calendar, as well as January. Most just go over December right now. With that being said, we got Vault event this weekend, too, actually within the same time frame, though I guess yeah, it's still the same interval that it's normally in. We have ourselves the Christmas event taking place starting on the 15th, so that'll be going on for that 2-week period, where you'll be able to go and get the new troop, the new pet associated with it, as well as the old Christmas armor, if you didn't already get it in the past. We also have that Guild Wars that week on that Thursday, starting at the 18th. We'll end up having the Daemon Guild Wars, so if you don't have some good Daemon troops, you might want to try to scrap those together by that week, as we have a Guild War related to it during the week of right before Christmas. Beyond that, there was one other thing I wanted to mention here that isn't quite marked. The holiday event calendar. So 7 days after both of these, we should be getting the free reward. Maybe even one on Christmas Day if they end up doing it that way. But yeah, this is a little bit of the free reward with those money things that they do during those times. But yeah, just go for the 2 free ones or the 3 free ones that end up being on it and make sure to go get all the rewards from that. Beyond that, the other thing that's pretty noteworthy is the pet, holiday pet. I'll be getting this on the 24th, the day before Christmas. We'll end up getting the 2025 Christmas pet, so definitely make sure to get that. Though, of course, with the new pet system, they are easier to get than ever, so if you do end up missing it, won't honestly take that long to be able to see it again, but still always a good idea to go and get them on the day that they release. Even though they're easier than ever to go and get, it's still nice to get them and not need to worry about them on the day of, and if nothing else, this makes it easier to go and get it closer to max from all the rewards that you would end up getting for it during that time. It's pretty much most of the things. There might also be a patch coming in. I don't see any mention of a patch during anywheres here or in the, why is it scrolling so weirdly? But anywheres here or in the lower one. However, they do generally try to push out one smaller patch before the end of the year, so there is a good chance maybe on that 9th or that 16th there, probably a little bit more likely on that 9th, we might get a small little patch just to kind of touch up on some things, probably just some quality of life or something. It's not announced here, but it is decently likely unless they're planning on doing that just in January to end out the Christmas thingy and everything. But yeah, we could probably expect to see that even though it's not marked anywheres down there. And that's pretty much everything that we're going to be having for the entirety of the month. With all that being said, let's go and get into all the teams for the video. As far as the start from the top, of course, we got ourselves Green Doom. For these, you have to use a pure green team. For every single one of your Doom battles, you want to go and report back to your guild where all of the better rooms are throughout the entirety of the Doom event. You always want to be using the weapon as well to be able to get double score, which does make it a little bit costly for a weekly guild event, and that's basically everyone in your guild needs to be at least contributing 500 gems ideally in order to go get the weapon for the double points, and also just to have it in the future just so you don't need to go out of your way to get it. It's also nice. You also get a decent amount of the Forge Scrolls to end up upgrading it, though with the new orb system from several years ago, it is quite a bit easier to just go and ascend them through orbs now. However, this can also offset the earlier levels so you're not wasting as many orbs or don't have to use a major orb. You can simply just use the Forge Scrolls on the earlier ones, get it to like level 6 or 7, and then use the smaller orbs if you're not using a major orb to go and get it upgraded. Though keep in mind, it doesn't actually have to be upgraded in order to get the double score. This has to be on your team, but it is pretty decent at clearing out when there's one enemy left, so might be worth upgrading if you want that extra bit of damage, especially if you're using a lower rarity team and don't have some of the stronger options like Flower Dragon, Stellaric, stuff like that to end up incorporating into your team. But just report back to your guild where all the better rooms are, as it is the same across your entire guild. Not the same from guild to guild, but within your own guild is all the same rooms, so make sure to report back where all the better rooms are, and you'll all be able to benefit from it. As far as the higher rarity team, we actually use a pretty low rarity shell for the team. It's Bog Strider, the weapon for the event, Leprechaun in last slot, and then just put your best damage source that you own in third slot, so you can replace this out for whatever you happen to have. Of course, the most ideal things to put here would be either Chrysathronax or the Stellarix. However, if you want to incorporate something weaker and end up putting it here, it is perfectly fine as well. Just whatever your strongest overall green damage source is would end up working for this team. Some other options include Maelstrom Dagannoth, as well as, of course, Stellarix as mentioned, and pretty much any insta-kill or high damage output troop that you can end up slotting there. As far as the lower rarity team, we end up going down the Truffle route, could even go double Truffle. It is a legend, but if you don't currently have it, all you have to do is throw some Chaos Shard to Amethyrax. If you currently don't have enough Chaos Shards to do that, you could do your daily faction Underworld today and tomorrow, as well as the faction event on tomorrow, on Tuesday, and you should be able to scrap together enough Chaos Shards within those 2 days to end up getting yourself at least one Truffle, if not 2. And if you do end up going with only one, we have Merklurk and Dirk, which we can end up going down. If you don't have this, you could go a second Truffle, but this guy has a bunch of Wish Gems to get a bunch of mana for across your entire team, a bunch of additional effects, just auto extra turn, which ends up making it pretty decent. But the main thing is he ends up using brown with the auto extra turn, which is really nice because, of course, Truffle has auto extra turn into green and brown creation, so it just allows you to be able to use the brown. But basically, one Truffle with anything that can utilize the brown or double Truffle would be perfectly fine here as a nice budget team. You could even go down the Beatrix route if you kind of want to go down true damage as well, but we end up going down the Goblin route for that one. Next, we have itself the faction event team. This is for the Primal Rift, which is a green-purple restriction with a weapon being allowed to be any color. As far as this is concerned, we're running a low rarity, just running double Lana and then using our Leprechaun, of course, with Empower into its mana accumulation in order to go and get everything rolling with 75% mana start off of your Atlantas. Just ends up getting its damage output very quickly. Even just the Explosion enchant that you have, if you have those potion effects, would pretty much already get you there. And it just goes and just does full AoE over and over again until you win. And we have Black Manacle as whatever hero class you want to go get class XP on, though we are using Archmages in this situation just for the extra 3 purple, but Leprechaun alone is that 75% mana start's already going to be enough mana in most situations. As far as the higher range team or just running a Maelstrom Dagonoth quick heal team, you can go with double damage source in the middle if you want to instead as well. But it's basically just using a box stride leprechaun base into whatever your best damage sources are under the green category. And in this case, we're just going all in on the Maelstrom Dagonoth. And of course, you can also use purples like Zul'Goth and similar other insta-kill teams, troops, if you want to go and double up in the middle there. As far as the pure faction team is concerned, it is a nice diverse team of just Older Father. However, this is not going to be your team the entire time. Even though we did get a 5th troop here, unfortunately isn't really worth incorporating into the pure faction team here. However, we are going to be using a 5th, or technically 6th troop in a sense, in that he summons 2 different things. He either summons a Trant or summons a green golem. Trant is not a Primal Rift troop, so you cannot start with it. However, it is really good compared to what the average troop is in Primal Rift. And basically the strategy of running the Primal Rift battles are, in the very first battle, you want to try to kill as quickly as possible your first slot. It could be literally anything. I just happen to put a 4th Alder Father here. But you can put absolutely anything here, and you want to kill it out pretty much as quickly as you possibly can. Once it dies, you are then going to cast your other Alder Father to go summon a Trant or a Green Golem. You're going to hope you roll a 50-50 and get the Trant. If it summons a Green Golem, you're going to do the process again, and that thing that has like 50% score reduction, you're going to have to try to let it die again, and keep doing this until you end up getting a Trant. You can do this on any of the battles, though it's just the most convenient to do it on the first, but if you see another battle that might be a little bit easier to set it up on, then you might want to do it on a later battle. But basically, you want to get your battle to be Trant into 3 Alder Fathers. You cannot start your team like this, otherwise it doesn't count as Spear Faction, but you'll be able to get it like that by constantly re-rolling a resummon, and once you have that, you're good to go. The main reason being is Trant, which you're not allowed to start with, but will have ultimately on your team from the summon, ends up going and gaining a bunch of attack and armor, and pretty much anything ever in faction that gains attack into a durability is just auto-win. It has 50% score reduction, so it's going to be really tanky as well, and you'll just keep building up attack and durability over and over again until you have enough to go and 1 to 3 shot the enemy, and then of course you have skull spam on your Alder Father to go and get a bunch of skull spam into that value. And if you somehow die on your Trent, well, you get to resummon him again a billion times over, and that's pretty much the whole game plan, is use his skull spam into the Trent's high attack gain in order to go and win. You just can't start with it, otherwise it doesn't count as pure faction, but it will ultimately be your team by the end of the battles. As far as the Archer class event is concerned, this is specifically elves from Forest of Thorns. With that being said, it's a little bit annoying as far as what we have to run, in the sense that, you know, you can only use the elves, so you basically just run a bunch of mana link into whatever your best damage source is here, which is War and Peace. We're just throwing a bunch of green into this in order to go get its damage over and over again, do damage to all enemies. We have Daughter of Yasmin, which can convert red to green, and everything else is basically just here to go and get the extra bit of bonus, since you can get the full 4 times bonus, which gives you a bunch of various stats for Forest of Thorns and such, but most notably gives you the 3 magic from being 4 times elf, since we're also using our Archer hero class, which not only has 10% extra stats this week, but you're also getting the 3 magic since you're building a 4 times elf team, as well as all the extra stats. So most of those other stats you won't really be using for the class event, though you might be using it for a little bit in the Underspire event. So of course Underspire is going to be pretty similar since you're running a pretty heavy Forest of Thorn team, though keep in mind you can go elemental as well to end up utilizing that nice magic bonus. What we're doing on this first battle here, we're using Forest of Troll into the Libram. For the later battles, you're probably going to want to move the Libram up, but we're using it a little bit further back just because for the earlier fights you're going to win in one cast, because we're using a Flower Dragon. We're using Gladius. Deals a bunch of damage. Oh gosh, that number is so big. I keep forgetting how high the Flower Dragons hit sometimes. That is so high. Like any other full AoE option we'd have at this range, because we're like, what, 74 magic. We're going to get a permanent +2 magic soon, which is something I actually completely forgot to go mention. We need to go back to that with the campaign. The campaign has 6 extra magic purple scroll thingies you can get this season, and that's going to be enough for me to go get my Purple Kingdom max finally by the end of the season, so that's going to be nice. But we'll get back to that in a second. But anyways, yeah, that is so much damage. Like the average AoE around this range would be doing like 80-ish. This thing's doing 209. That's so much damage. But yeah, you have access to Green Flower Dragon, which of course has really, really good boost ratio. Not as good as Chrysathanax, but still absurdly high. Then you're just feeding a bunch of mana into it. You're using Daughter of Yasmin to end up converting into green. We're using Elemental. So if they do have Submerge, you could go like Mech and similar. Anything with Dispel to end up getting removed. And of course, for their later fights, you might want to go Forest Troll with the Libram of Decay a little bit further up in order to go and utilize for the double cast. But when you're winning within 1 cast, aka the first 2 to 3 floors or so, you can just get away with just a Gladius, and you'll be perfectly fine as far as those battles are concerned. And you're just casting this, getting your hopefully extra turn, just good with all the green are on the board, since it has extra turn rate based on how many greens there are. You're doubling the amount of greens +3. You're doing this to convert anything that isn't green into brown, and then that gives you your Forest Troll again, so you can double the green again to get your cast back up, and that's pretty much the whole game plan here. And of course, Libram of Decay, one of the ones that is very similar to the current weapon in the current campaign, but this time around, you can actually get in Soulforge finally now. So this was a money-locked weapon for a while, so I haven't really been showing it in that many teams, though there are a lot of good builds you can do with it, most notably Forest Troll into Libram of Decay. But yeah, it is available now, so if you haven't gotten this from the previous campaign, I believe this is the first week ever where you can end up getting it. So basically highest priority thing to get in Soulforge this week. If you do not have Libram of Decay, regardless if you're an early game, late game player, you definitely want to pick this up. Decay gems themselves aren't really particularly good, but to be able to convert into brown on hero for 14 mana cost, while also doing, what is the other effect? I guess steal some mana? No, the extra effect's not too useful, but it's mostly just the fact that you can do this on hero while converting into brown, while having some synergies like Forest Troll with it, ends up making it pretty useful for a couple teams, and most notably for Underspire this week to use with the Flower Dragon, or whatever your best green damage source is from the kingdom. As far as the low rarity team, we're going all in on the resummon weapon, also available of course in Soulforge, as is a Forest of Thorns week. It just ends up exploding a bunch of gems and resummons a Forest of Thorns troop, where he's using green giant here because he has a bunch of mana accumulation. He ends up creating green giant gem whenever he takes skull damage, as well as having a pretty high amount of mana accumulation. If you can end up getting the convert on this, ends up converting 5 brown gems into green giant gems, and if you end up getting any of these connect, each one of these is 5 extra green mana and does a 3x3 around it, or every gem around it, and it explodes, so you end up getting some extra mana accumulation as well. So you can end up getting a ton extra mana, especially if 2, 3, even more of these end up landing. And with the ability to explode, you'll always be able to go and claim them for mana as well, since you'll be able to explode all green, and these are the green giant gems that you'll end up getting the 5+5 for. So if you were able to get all 5 of them with that mechanic, you would be able to get 25 mana just from that alone, not counting anything else that you end up exploding. And that alone is enough to get not only your Emerald Giant back to full mana, but also Romaine to full mana. It's actually exactly enough. And yeah, of course, Romaine, pretty standard, ends up boost ratio based on armor. Really great boost ratio. Unfortunately, we're not using any way to increase our armor in this situation, but still ends up working out really well as a damage source. Just got to be careful that it doesn't end up taking damage. And one mechanic that I don't normally show too often that you can do with the raid bosses, of course, for that of Underspire, is if you're ever struggling on one of those battles, either near the end where they start to get really high stats, the dragons that are in the Underspire are boss troops. And because of that, you can do up to 5 times damage by using the corresponding boss slaying option within any given kingdom, in this case the Fey Mark. And on top of this, you also get to cleanse all allies and dispel all enemies whenever you end up getting to kill them, regardless if it's on a boss or not. But yeah, you can just basically one-shot, two-shot bosses depending on what your stats are, what his ascension is, which is not that bad at all. So that's pretty much the game plan with him. So any of those battles that you have, which are basically all those boss rooms that you end up getting the extra rewards from, all the really good loot, the ones that you would normally occasionally use lanterns on some locations, all the ones that have the dragon fight on it, all of them are a boss troop. So you can end up getting that additional up to 5 times extra damage on them to kind of just wipe them out quickly, which makes your Romaine damage more concentrated, which allows the rest of the team just to kill a little bit more easily. But that's a low rarity plan then. As far as Vault Event Weekend, pretty standard teams. Just quick kill Romaine team, pretty standard for if you need a nice budget option. Black manacles you get just from leveling up hero by putting into brown and purple master if you don't already have it. You should have it by around level 200, 300 or so. Romaine you end up getting for free from completing out the Forest of Thorns kingdom. She's also really easily accessible in the event key drop table this week to be able to get more copies of it if you need. Leprechaun is just a low rarity troop in general, so it's just easy to get, and then you get it fully traded for its turn 1 mass mana accumulation. And Mirage Queen, you throw Chaos Shards at Sunken Fleet, get it fully traded with orange orbs, either with a major orange or a couple small ones, and ends up giving 50% mana start to all elementals, which most notably goes into Rowain, as well as other synergy troops, but in this team into Rowain, in order to go get it up so you can get the cast a little bit quicker. And I just realized, what do I have Nightweaver here? I had this here for when I was actually leveling that. Well, I guess there's quite a few options. I guess since it's Archer week, we'll go Archer here. Why not? Just to have that there for the Green Storm to make it extra. It makes it so you have a higher extra turn chance with Leprechaun, as well as just getting more greenos on the board for his Green Link, which goes into your Rowan, of course, as well. Beyond that, as far as the other 2 quick kill teams, the more standard ones, you just spam a billion Iron Hawks. In this case, we're running triple Iron Hawk into Dust level. This does 20 damage and can one-shot things like Center Mirage. So used pretty commonly in their Wild Plains and Drakzoom, I believe, are the 3 that can still be one-shotted by it. And beyond that, we have the Nomapalooza one that does 25 damage. You just do Sister Superior into Dust Devil here, and that will do 10 damage and then 15. The extra damage coming from the 5 damage that it does to all enemies, and of course all that damage in general just coming from 5 damage to all enemies whenever you're using an Ironhawk. So both of these two teams just being pretty standard for Vault Event weekends if you can end up eventually getting 8,000 or 12,000 diamonds scrapped together to go complete out your Ironhawk sets. Really useful for pretty much just Nomapalooza events or Vault Event weekends, but you get so much extra loot from it that is definitely worth going out of your way for the 8,000, 12,000 diamonds eventually to go and end up crafting them. But yeah, there's two things I forgot to mention with the campaign earlier when we're going over that. It is purple scrolls. You will get 3 purple deed books for free from doing the Slayer objective here, from doing the Matchmaster one here, and then doing the Heroic Master here. Doing all 3 of these categories by the end will give you a purple deed book, which are really relevant because there are 4 magic kingdoms in the game that end up upgrading with it. There are 5 total. Zolkiri is the green one, but the 4 that are purple are Blighted Lands, Darkstone, Karkaroth, and Silverglade. So those 4 kingdoms are really, really good value to go and end up upgrading, as they end up giving a magic bonus when upgraded. And I need only 4 more to go and finally get this one upgraded. So yeah, I need to go get that. That is so good. We'll finally have max magic after such a long time with that deed book system existing. But yeah, after all these years, we'll finally have max magic, honestly, sometime within a week, maybe a few weeks. I could probably have it, honestly, this week if I end up getting the other thing from PvP and we get lucky off the thing. So yeah, we'll have that pretty soon. Looking forward to that. It's only 2 magic, but 2 magic go a long way. You put down a Chrysathanax, it's almost like 7 damage right there. Like 6 to 7 damage. That's a lot of extra damage. Anyways, was there another thing? Oh yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to mention there. Of course, with the last campaign, it was a little bit annoying because of the orc restriction. So if you were doing it last minute, it was really annoying to try to get the kill objective. This one isn't as annoying this time around. It's undead, but do keep in mind, given that is a Golvania event week for the final week, it is highly advised to do this before the final week of the campaign. You still can do it on the final week if you truly had to, but you want to try to do it by week 9 or earlier, even this week if you want to. Try to do whatever the kill objective is, because whatever the kill objective is tends to be also the kingdom of the event week, which makes it a lot more annoying because you can't actually do explore quick kill. Like you can't just do like explore level 1 like you can right now if you want to go into super quick kill and get this completed. So yeah, make sure to get this completed before the last 7 days if you can, as it's not as bad as the orc one where you got like almost completely bottlenecked out of it, but it will be harder to do if you wait all the way to the final week. So definitely make sure within the next 63 days, which is a lot of time, to go get all your undead kills here. I forget how many is total. I think it's under 1,000. You could easily get it done just by, spamming something like Golvania here. If we go to Golvania, just do whatever quick kill team. You could do it at a low rarity range, or you could just do Explore 12 and just do whatever high rarity team you want to do. Double Tesla, obviously Flower Dragon, Stellaric, stuff like that. But yeah, this kingdom is like going to be 3-4 undeads pretty much every battle you do, so would end up being ultimately pretty quick. And if you put it at a low rarity, oh yeah, we finally got the new gem, by the way. There it is. Actually, can I go get it? Might as well just show it real quick. If we end up matching this, it'll bleed a random enemy, or if he gets it, it'll bleed a random ally, or one of us. But yeah, if we take this, it just counts as a purple gem, so I'll be able to match it just like any other purple gem, and we'll be able to go get a bleed onto a random enemy. So you can see right there, end up hitting them, and now they have 1 bleed. Let's see, can I remember what the bleed stack is? I believe it has 4 stacks, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I'm not mistaken, the damage numbers are 1, 3, 6, and 10. Actually, is it 6 or 7 for the final one? Or second to last one? I actually don't remember. I think it's 6. But I believe it's 1, 3, 6, and 10. It's either a 6 or 7 for that third one, though. But those are the stacks. The most important thing to note is just at 4 does end up doing 10, which is effectively 10 true damage per turn, which can end up stacking to be a lot of damage. Like we can see right here, he'll take 1 damage right there because he has a 1 stack, and then it goes to 3, 6, 10, and eventually, that 10 damage per turn at 4. It can end up being a lot of damage over time. 10 true damage is not a small amount of damage. And there are some things that we're going to be getting through this campaign, through just various troops, through the campaign pass in general, and just into the future that has a lot of potential to really work well with 4 times bleed. It's always been a decently strong mechanic, there just hasn't been enough troops to really utilize it while also being strong themselves. There's been things like Mother of Darkness in the game, but this will be the first season where we'll really be able to go and utilize a lot of that, since there's been very few niche teams that can really effectively 4x bleed the enemy team without really going out of your way, as a lot of them just have really average or underwhelming abilities that just don't really do too much unless you build really specifically into them. But now that we're going to have more mechanics to end up being able to bleed the enemy to 10 bleed, or to 4 stack a bleed to do the 10 true damage per turn, there's going to be a lot more opportunities to end up using the mechanics. So it'll be interesting to see by the end of this campaign what exactly a proper bleed team looks like, because Mother of Darkness has been kind of nerfed into the ground ever since Rogue Spider ended up getting nerfed. So it'll be interesting to see what the new meta for bleed will be by the end of the 10-week period there. But anyways, beyond that, let's go to Soulforge. So we're kind of mentioning this earlier. As far as troops, nothing really too noteworthy, though do keep an eye out for Friday and see if any of them that are coming out this weekend might be worthwhile. But as far as if you are going to go for one of the mythics, I would say it's mostly Kronos. It's very niche. But he does have a interesting mechanic in that he's the only troop in the entire game that has extra turn effect for final trait. A lot of them, when they say extra turn, they mean 4 times or 5 times. This one actually works on any extra turn. So if you have a troop that has gain extra turn ability, it will automatically do it. If you take an Hourglass Gem, it will automatically do it. It enchants all allies when you get an extra turn of any kind whatsoever. Which I wish they would add more mechanics like this to Legends and Mythics. It's actually weird that he's the only one in the entire game that has one that functions like this. But the main thing that he's used for is just an Hourglass Gem mechanic. There are a lot of times where the way lower rarity Daughter of Time is better, or similar to what he'll end up ultimately doing, while also covering different colors. But it is still decent if you're looking to get a infinite kind of team going, where you just keep poking extra turn gems over and over again, because whenever you take an Hourglass Gem, you'll gain an extra turn, and you only need to take one. And even if your entire team is frozen, it'll still bypass the freeze. So you can constantly keep just getting extra turns with things that can board clear. Wow, I cannot speak right now. Clear the board. Anything that can clear the board or similar related mechanics end up having really good synergy with this, as well as Daughter of Time, as well as anything that can create a lot of Hourglass Gems. So very niche, but does have its use cases. Overall, not the greatest, but if you're looking for an Hourglass Gem mechanic to end up building your team together, it ends up working out really well for that. As far as weapons, there is one thing I would say is most highest priority, and that is if you haven't gotten a Librim of Decay at any point in the past. I believe this is the first time it's been available, or the second time. Pretty sure it's first, because the event for this was like, what, 2 events ago, 3 events ago? Decay Gem was pretty recent. It was sometime early this year, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time that you can get it free to play. So yeah, we can start showing this in teams now, which is actually pretty decent. Still very niche as far as when you'd bring it out, because Decay Gems themselves don't really do that much. It just lowers armor from whatever team has higher total durability, I believe it is, which means it could literally backfire on yourself a lot of times, which of course is not ideal. But the main thing you're doing it with is mostly Forest Troll synergy and a couple other teams that get like a mana synergy with it, where you end up converting all gems of color into brown gems, and then the thing that you're feeding brown into will feed either green or purple, most likely green, into your hero, and then you go back and forth with that, feeding both the green and the brown into whatever your biggest damage sources are on the team. So still pretty niche, but it's not bad. It definitely has its occasional use cases, with most notably being the current faction event. So I mean Underspire event. So if you use it for Underspire this week, has really, really good value for that. So still very niche, but it does have its use cases nonetheless. And beyond that, maybe pick it up on the exploding weapons like the Forest of Thorns one. You won't be using it outside the context of this week, but it's pretty good for Underspire this week as well, if you're looking for something like that. Whereas something like Libram of Decay will have a little bit more use case outside of just this event week, but of course it doesn't have resummon, unfortunately. Whereas this is a lot more of a lower early game kind of budget weapon for that, as it's really good at not dying for something like Underspire if you're missing a lot of other resummoners from the kingdom, though there are a few others that you can end up utilizing, though most of them are of the higher rarity range. Beyond that, we already went over most of the events, of course, earlier, but this Tuesday we have the faction event for Primal Rift, which is a green-purple restriction. Wednesday we have one of the Forest of Thorns troops coming in. Thursday we have the class event for Archer hero class, which isn't that bad. It used to be the best hero class in the game before all those extra perks and everything came in. Overall, Archer, main thing that is going for is 50% mana start into a 15% insta-kill. The most annoying thing about that 50% insta-kill is it works a little bit different than a lot of other insta-kills in the game, and it can be reflected. So if they have any amount of score reflect, even just 25% or anything else, you will instantly die with Archer if you end up getting insta-kill on them, which is not ideal. But yeah, it does have the highest insta-kill chance of any hero. Maybe not overall compared to what Assassin can do, but as far as per skull, as 15% instead of like 10% or anything else. So yeah, you can sometimes put it in first line, get a really lucky kill. It can end up being very useful in some niche situations, but just the fact that it's 50% mana start into that kind of skull capability is the main thing that ends up making it good, as it just has a natural 50%, so you don't have to build around it or anything else like that. You can just plop it down on a team. Also has Greenstorm, so some instances like that where you need Greenstorm ends up having really good synergy. And then, of course, last Friday, as we mentioned, is a vault event weekend. So make sure to use up any vault keys if you want to beforehand. And yeah, just go farm a bunch of vault keys to go and get whatever loot you end up wanting from them. Gems, various keys, all the tarot cards and everything else in the drop table there. Beyond that, what else have we not gone over? Of course, Tower of Doom, of course, we already mentioned. Don't forget to use the weapon. Does cost 500 gems, but highly advise getting it, because not only do you not need to get the weapon in the future, but it also gives you double score for the event, and helps complete out the event for your guild. And then just report back to your guild where all the better rooms are, or go over whatever ones they've already mentioned, as all the rooms are the same per guild, so you'll end up knowing where all the better ones are. Most main ones being Fireball, Heroism, Unlocks, anything else that you want to end up reporting on, like the Luckies that end up giving you extra Doom kills, powers for extra stats, stuff like that. But Fireballs, Heroisms, and Unlocks are always the three most important ones, as they're the main ones associated with progressing the Tower of Doom event. Beyond that, I feel like I'm still forgetting one other thing here. Oh yeah, event keys. So, Forest of Thorn event keys. What is and isn't in drop table? We actually have it already saved here, so we don't even need to go bring it up. Everything that you see here is what the drop table is, with the main exceptions being the long laundry list as per usual. Okay, let me take a sip of water. Let's crack open the water. Got the water here. Okay. So, the long list of exceptions for the week of what is in event key drop table, which just keeps getting longer and longer every single time I feel like we do this, includes Array, because it is in the seal drop table, all 5 faction troops from Primal Rift, because they're in the Primal Rift shards from the Primal Rift faction in the Underworld. The tarot card of Queen of Swords is only in the Vault Key drop table, and is in Vault Key drop table, so you can get it from this Vault event weekend or any current keys that you have laying around. The Elemental Sentinel, this is only from Underspire Dead End rooms, and actually is a pretty good one. It ends up doing Curse and Tangle, so you can stop scroll spam teams and stuff. It's actually not that bad, but unfortunately really rare from doing Underspire. It takes like a year to be able to go and cycle through all of them, if not even longer, and that's assuming you do the entirety of Underspire every single time. But yeah, that's a really rare drop from Underspire. Other things that are not drop table includes the Immortal Lyrago, as well as the Immortal Monstera. These are both from the Burning Shards that are from PvP. You go through Burning Shards here, you have a random chance to get either of these two. Neither of them are too over the top, though I believe this one does actually get used occasionally for its Fairy Fire in this area. Not necessarily for its ability, but more so for its Fairy Fire, oddly enough. And then the final thing that is not drop table includes, of course, Gladius, which unfortunately is, of course, really good for Underspire this week, but is in the Dragon drop table eggs for that of the Flower Dragon. So 600 Dragonite each. You can get them in the Soul Forge whenever, and is very, very useful for this current event week, not just because it's 20%. Oh, no wonder why its number seems so high. Though it is Flower Dragon still. 20% extra stats on it this week as well. So, yeah, that makes it really, really strong too on top of that. But yeah, it is in the Dragonite Dragon drop table for the Flower Dragon, 600 each in the Soul Forge, as far as getting that. So, why would you open event keys this week? The answer is mostly King Avalarn, if you don't already have this. He's a 50% mana start for all elves. This is really good for Guild Wars if you're doing a Guild War restriction that has an elf defend team, because this is still ends up making the really meta elf defend team, which is generally an empower troop into either Life and Death or the Ruby weapon, followed by Arachne Weaver, and then ending in him, which gives 50% mana start to all the elves like Weaver and everything else that are on your team. You could even use Orb Weaver for hero and get a pure elf team out of that as well. But yeah, it's very, 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 very strong for elf teams. Not necessarily required, but definitely highly advised on any elf team. Not only having 50% mana start, but also the ability to summon even additional Forest of Thorns troops on top of that, while having a little bit of extra damage. No follow-up on its ability, but the extra summon can come in handy since you're normally meat shielding a lot in a team that's normally used with. So overall, yeah, mostly just an elf synergy troop. You're very, very rarely using it, and mostly using it in more defensive things like Guild War Defend elf team, but overall, still really good in case an elf restriction ever comes out or anything similar. Good for bringing out in any of those kind of circumstances for all those various restrictions. You definitely want to get yourself at least one copy, as well as Daughter of Yasmin and Forest Troll. These are a lot lower rarity, so a lot easier to get as well. This is really good because it ends up creating a green storm into its own color. It's one of those, there's only 2 of these in the moment. I wish they would do this for every color already, but we only have it for, what, green and yellow at the moment, but hopefully it'll do it eventually for every color, where it has Empower while creating color into its own color, while creating storm into its own storm while using that color. So you'll always be able to get mana back into itself, you'll always have the storm to go back into itself, and you'll have the Empower to be able to do that immediately from turn 1. It's really strong, and hopefully the other 4 colors will eventually get it. You definitely want to make sure you have it. Beyond that, Forest Troll, a lot of good synergies, most notably because of Truffle and Beatrix existing. Truffle and Beatrix both create green and brown. Brown going, of course, obviously back into Forest Troll. Green being doubled by his effect, +3. So they have really good synergy together where you end up casting something like Forest Troll, which feeds into your Truffle and or Beatrix, which they then cast, which feeds back into themselves and into Forest Troll. That then not only gives Forest Troll full mana, but also sets up your board with a ton of green. And you basically just keep repeating that forever because Truffle has auto extra turn, and Beatrix has really high extra turn rate, while not guaranteed is decently high. And that's pretty much the whole game plan with him, and he's actually really good. Out of any of the trolls, he's by far the strongest one, not just because of his synergy with Truffle and Beatrix, but also because he has 33% skull reduction into Entangle and Skull, so he's also really tanky and can actually be put in first slot, so you don't have to run Hero in first slot. You can run Forest Troll's first slot, and it'll be perfectly fine in most situations. And yeah, those utility troops you definitely want to make sure you end up getting. And beyond that, you can also get your Rowain max in early game if you haven't already done that. Get it like for your first ascension on it, and then throw like a blue orb on it, and boom, you got yourself a max Rowain ready to go for running in a bunch of early to mid game teams for its really high armor boost ratio that it has. And yeah, that's pretty much everything with event keys. Mostly just a bunch of utility troops that are low rarity, not really worth going for the high rarity stuff, as everything high rarity there is pretty bad, at least under the event key drop table wise. Obviously the Flower Dragon's pretty good, but that's not an event key. Beyond that, new Glory Troop. So this one actually does have the new bleed mechanic if you want to go and utilize it some, though it is pretty underwhelming for it. Hopefully we'll see some cooler options over the course of the event. But it ends up stealing a bunch of life from an enemy, so it does get to keep the life, which is nice. This is nice because it also has 33% skull reduction, so it's somewhat tanky. And then converts 4 purple gems into bleed gems. This unfortunately does not create any additional value. You cannot extra turn from this because it's converting a purple gem into a purple gem, which is kind of unfortunate because, yeah, there's really no value gained in a sense from that. It also has a 10% chance to create a bleed gem at the start of its turn, so this is good value whenever it does do this, as it is creating just value for your team. But of course, with how low of a percent chance that is not really that effective. It is basically 10 times worse than the mythic that is coming out through the campaign that has a guaranteed chance of creating a bleed gem, of course, every single turn. And oddly enough, it does have green link, which I guess does have some use cases within the kingdom, but just a little bit weird because it's doing purple and purple for both its 2 abilities, which is not green. I guess it's synergized in the sense that it is green purple, but it's just a little bit weird that it has these purple mechanics, but then gets green link, which is very specifically not purple, which I guess because Forest of Thorns is a really green heavy kingdom, so they figured why not go green. But because it is not a elf, it does not get counted for something like a Thursday class event, so you can't even use it in that context. The best you'd be able to use it on is in the Underspire this week, which did I end up showing it in the low rated team? I don't think I did. I originally was going to, but ended up opting for not showing it, I don't think. But you can use them for green link in, not that team, in the low rarity Underspire team. Yeah, I ended up opting just going all in on Rowain damage. Oh, I think it was because of this guy. It was like because of the boss mechanic thing, yeah. I think I was going to put him there instead, but I ended up opting for Feymark because it seemed like it was better overall value for something like Underspire. Maybe you can replace him with a new plant too if you want to go down that route, if you want to try it out. But overall, yeah, just better to go Rowain mostly. All in on Rowain. Anyways, beyond that, yeah, went over Glory Troop, went over that. Yeah, basically this new campaign, make sure to go do everything with that. Don't forget to do the undead thing at before it's the final week, just so it's a little bit easier to do. And most importantly, honestly, more so than anything, don't forget to go get your 3 purple deed books. These are all really easy tasks, so you're just going to get done automatically, but if you do want to rush them to go get more progress on a magic-based kingdom, either for upgrading that of Blighted Lands, Darkstone, Karkaroth, or Silverglade, definitely make sure to do so, as extra permanent magic is very, very strong. It's the strongest thing you can ever get from a kingdom upgrade, and getting 3 for free up to 6 if you buy the $10 kingdom pass thingy this season, really, really, really good value. So best time to be going for it overall, and pretty cool weapon as well. I definitely want to go try the weapon on the week that ends up coming out. But, of course, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll go mess around with everything that we have going on throughout the week. And we'll go from there. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful month, a wonderful Christmas and other holidays later within the season. And I will catch all of you guys later. Goodbye, everyone. And thanks for watching.